My name is Jennifer. I'm a dedicated housewife who's been married for 20 years. I remarried with my current husband 20 years ago. I was in my first marriage while it was his second, and during our relationship, he confessed that he had a son who is turning 5. I tried to leave several times after that, but in the end, I couldn't part from him and we went ahead and tied the knot. Despite all the struggles, ever since we got married, I have made a point of raising his child as if he were my own. The son was 5 years old when we got married. He did show typical adolescent rebellious behavior, but we never had dramatic exchanges like in the movies where he would yell, "You're not my real mom," or anything of the sort. I believe we built a happy family together. 2 years into our marriage, I became pregnant. We were blessed with a lovely baby boy of our own. Our eldest son, James, was a bit older than his younger brother with a 7-year age gap, but he was still very kind and protective as an older brother. Even though I wasn't his biological mother, I was somewhat apprehensive, but as the old saying goes, better to have the baby than to worry about it. Life has a way of working itself out, as I've come to realize. A few years after, our second son was born. Our eldest son started to enter puberty and began to reject my presence. The trigger was something truly trivial. I wasn't aware of it myself, but our eldest son told me that I treated him and his younger brother differently. I tried to explain to him that it wasn't the case, but he wouldn't listen. Our relationship began to break down like a landslide from that point, and now in his eyes, I am just someone who does the chores around the house. Regardless of whether my son recognizes me as his mother or not, I have been determined to be his mother ever since the day I married my husband. Until the day he becomes an adult and leaves this house, I'm committed to take care of him no matter how much he resents it. I decided to commit to this wholeheartedly. As a result, our relationship worsened as he went through puberty and his rebellious stage. Looking back, I probably should have let things slide and not made any comments, but I just couldn't do that at the time. Now, it's become commonplace for him to call me, "Hey you." When I was doing the laundry or cleaning, he would yell at me furiously, "Don't touch my stuff when I didn't ask you to." He did apologize later, probably realizing how out of line he was, but when I forgave him with a smile, he became defiant again, saying, "In the first place, it's your fault for doing things I told you to stop, lady." I knew then that things were getting out of hand. My husband does try to discipline him, but he's well behaved in front of my husband, so my husband ended up doubting me, saying, "Did James really do that?" I tried recording our interactions to prove it to my husband a few times, but it never worked out, as something always came up or we didn't have any arguments when I was recording. As time went on, our eldest son came of age and decided to leave home. I remember breathing a sigh of relief, thinking that I'd finally made it through. His parting words when leaving the house were, "Finally, I don't have to see strangers' faces." I thought those were harsh words for me, who had been taking care of him every day for 15 years since we first met. He's not a bad kid. Even though I understood this intellectually, my heart couldn't catch up. When our eldest son left the house saying those words, our second son, Richard, who was just entering middle school at the time, looked perplexed and asked, "Why does Big Brother hate Mom so much?" So I thought it necessary to tell my younger son the whole truth as well, and told him about remarrying his father and that his older brother was his father's son from a previous marriage. My younger son seemed shocked at first that his older brother and him were not blood related, but he quietly listened to the end of the story. In the end, he seemed to accept it, saying, "So that's why his attitude towards Mom was weird these past few years." I don't regret marrying our husband, but I began to regret claiming to be the mother of our older son. Maybe there was a way to live together as just housemates? Maybe I didn't have to force him to recognize me as his mother? Once I started thinking about it, the thoughts just didn't stop. A few years after our eldest son moved out, we received a message from him saying, "I will be visiting soon for a marriage introduction." The message was relayed through his younger brother. I hadn't received any direct communication, but I was okay with it because I was getting regular updates about him through my husband and younger son. However, with his marriage on the horizon, we had to do the formal introductions and face each other. After meeting with the parents of the bride-to-be, they left. The room felt awkward because we hadn't seen each other for several years, but the conversation moved to whether or not I would attend the wedding. "I don't think of you as my mother. I don't want you to attend the ceremony." "What? What are you saying? Jennifer's the one who raised you up to this point." "I don't care, I didn't ask for that. Anyway, you remarried without even asking my opinion, and you're trying to tell me she's my mother? I can't accept that." "James, have you been saying such terrible things to Mom all this time? I trusted you." "I've been pretending all along in front of you. I'm severing my ties with this house. I'm being adopted into my wife's family, so I don't need to grovel to you guys anymore." "Have you really never thought of me as your mother, not even once?" I don't know about when I was a little kid, but certainly not in my memory." "I see. I understand." With my husband, who was looking worried behind me, I left the room. I didn't want to cry in front of my eldest son, but when I left the room, I couldn't cry. What had the past 15 years been for? I remembered my eldest son when he was little, when he used to call me mom and say, "I love you" with a smile. My phone wallpaper was a picture of my eldest son and my younger son when they were small. A picture of my 7-year-old eldest son holding my newborn younger son timidly. If I could go back to that time, I would want to, I thought as I looked at the picture. Those were good times, really. I muttered and decided to leave the house. My younger son is 18, graduating from high school next year, and has mentioned going to a university with dormitories. In effect, I will be relieved of my duties. So I've decided to change my mindset and start enjoying living on my own from now on. That night, I had a talk with my husband about our future, about our eldest son today. "Jennifer, I'm truly sorry I never believed you. I had no idea that our son James could disrespect others in such a way." "No, it's all right now. Perhaps my parenting was also at fault. Even though I thought of him as my own child, I suppose I treated him differently. He told me so himself. I wasn't aware of it myself, but I was taking care of him in my own way." "I know that better than anyone else. You have always taken care of James as if he were your own. I am truly grateful for that." "But it seems that even that was something he didn't want. It's almost laughable, isn't it?" As I made this self-deprecating remark, my husband made a pained face, took my hand, and apologized to me over and over again. Then I told my husband that I would not attend the ceremony as he wished, and that I wanted a divorce because I would be leaving the house as soon as our second son left. I handed him the divorce papers. "Are you serious?" "Of course, I would never joke about something like this." "You're right, you are that kind of person. I'm truly sorry for all the pain I've caused you." "You don't need to apologize anymore. I have never regretted marrying you, so, okay?" "Jennifer, I love you from the bottom of my heart." I love you too. Please take care of James and Richard for me." That night, I fell asleep in my husband's arms for the first time since we were newlyweds. I was able to sleep soundly for the first time in a long while, comforted by the faint sound of his heartbeat. Several days passed since our discussion about the divorce. Our second son graduated from high school, and our eldest son's wedding is coming up next week. Our second son was wondering if he should wear his school uniform to attend the wedding, which I found amusing. Noticing me smiling at his preparations for the ceremony, he approached me and started a conversation. "Mom, are you really not going to attend my brother's wedding?" "Yes, he said he didn't want me there, so there's nothing I can do about it. It's his big day. I want him to enjoy it." "But Mom, you're the one who raised him with care." "It's okay, Richard. There's no need for you to worry about it." Not convinced by my words, my second son kept groaning in frustration. It must have been frustrating for him. He knows the good relationship I used to have with our eldest son. But repairing the relationship is now impossible. I have prepared to leave the house and the divorce is settled. I didn't ask for any division of the property, kept the money I had, and left the house with our second son. The house that was filled with memories of many years spent there. A house that represents half of my life. I left a video message for my second son and left my family behind. A week after I left home, I heard from my younger son that my eldest son's wedding went off without a hitch. I was relieved and asked my younger son about his impressions of the ceremony. Then he replied, "It was a total disaster, seriously." As I had chosen not to attend the wedding in accordance with my eldest son's wishes, his response took me by surprise, stopping my thoughts for a moment. But I managed to regain my composure and asked him what exactly went wrong. For some reason, he started boasting about it. "You remember, Mom, how you were there when we did the initial meet and greet, right?" "Yeah, I remember." "Well, because you weren't at the ceremony, his wife was all, 'Why?'" "I see, I understand." Big Brother was making all sorts of excuses, but his wife suddenly suggested to cancel the ceremony, and our parents went into a frenzy. The ceremony somehow started since everyone was already gathered, but throughout it was a sullen bride and a timid groom. It was quite a peculiar atmosphere at the venue. "Is that what happened?" "After the ceremony ended and all the attendees had left, I showed the video message from you, Mom, entrusted to me to my big brother, and then he started crying." "What? He cried?" "Yeah, but seeing that, his wife got even more upset. She said something along the lines of, 'How could you not invite someone who raised you with so much care to the most important event of your life?'" "So, what happened after that?" When I asked, he looked at me uncomfortably and said in a low voice, "They're separated." I was speechless, taken aback by this shocking news. Despite holding back my desire to attend the wedding for the sake of my son, the newlyweds separated shortly after their marriage. In retrospect, I think his wife admired the fact that I raised him as my own, despite having no blood relation. Furthermore, I recall that in the course of our conversation she had said, "I was also raised with great care by my parents, and I would love to build a warm and loving family with your son, just like my parents did." In other words, my son's stubbornness shattered his own happiness. When I heard this, I could hardly think of it as karma, because he cried after watching my video message. If he still has feelings for me, I couldn't be happier. I immediately contacted my husband and asked him about the couple. With a worried voice, my husband asked for my opinion.
"I don't know what to do. Now that it has come to this, I don't know what to say to him."
Don't worry, he's good at expressing his feelings clearly to others, but he might need a little push.
"A push, huh? Okay, I'll try it."
I don't know what happened after my husband and I talked on the phone, but when my younger son told me with a smile, they've reconciled. I believed everything would be okay from now on. I was resolved to truly leave them alone this time, and then...
"Mom,
Why are you here?
there's something I need to talk about."
With me?
"Yeah, I'm sorry about what I said during the wedding prep. Watching that video message the other day reminded me. I've always thought of you as my mom, really. And you've always defended me saying I'm your son. I'm really sorry."
I gently extended my hand to my son crying in front of me, wiping away the tears streaming down his cheeks. I was surprised to see an adult man shedding tears, but I thought that these tears must be expressing all of his feelings. He apologized for the harsh words he had thrown at me. That alone was enough for me. I didn't need anything more. "Thanks for coming. I got the photos from Richard. You looked great. Your girlfriend, Linda, right? She's a kind and lovely girl. Take good care of her, okay? Make her the happiest bride in the world."
"Yeah, I absolutely promise. So, Mom? It might be asking a lot, but could you come back home?"
What?
"Dad has been down ever since you left. It's like when I lost my birth mother. I can't bear to see it."
Your father?
"I'm really begging you."
Hearing my eldest son's words, I decided to go back home. I couldn't believe that he, who told me he loved me, was feeling down like this. Was this a lie told by my eldest son to make me reconcile with his father? I headed home, half doubting, half hoping. When I slowly opened the door and stepped in after a long time, I heard a soft sobbing sound.
"Jennifer."
I gently peeked in, and there was my husband, phone in hand, shoulders trembling as he cried. I was taken aback for a moment, but it would be strange not to say anything, so I called out to him, "Robert." His body jolted. He quickly turned towards me. His cheeks were wet with tears, reflecting the sunlight, and he quickly wiped his face and tried to act as if nothing was wrong, saying,
What? Is something wrong?"
I couldn't help but laugh. You know... If I said I wanted to come back here, would you be angry?
Huh?
His surprised voice was cut off as everything suddenly went dark. It took me a moment to realize that I was enveloped in a warm embrace. As I returned the hug and asked, "Does this mean it's okay?" he repeatedly nodded, saying, Yeah, in a nasal voice. Since then, I reconciled with my husband, and that was the last time I saw him cry. Now, I go on trips with him, have dates, and sometimes go out with my eldest son and his wife, spending my time happily. I owe all this happiness to my daughter-in-law, Linda. I'm truly grateful.